Thank you for tuning in today. We hope what you're about to hear will encourage you and bless you, leaving you with the joy of the Lord in your heart. Continue to stay tuned for today's awesome encouraging words from Pastor Dr. James Sutton. We always want you to stay encouraged, blessed, and full of love.
Hello. This is Pastor Jay. Hey, just coming on for a brief second. I know you guys have enjoyed your Christmas holiday, but I came across something I thought was interesting in the Word of God, and I'll be talking about that, how to suffer well, out of 1 Peter next year, beginning next year. I'll be teaching all of that. But you know what? What I see happening with a lot of our young people is we complain about their sense of entitlement, but it's not their fault. It's the parents' fault. Because we try to avoid the struggle that we went through to give our kids better lives. And we do. Congratulations for those who have risen above poverty through education and entrepreneurism and just achieving a lot of high things, degrees and such, that they're living a much better life than their parents. And that should be the goal of every family, that the next generation is better than the generation before. But the one thing we should not alleviate from the next generation is struggle, sacrifice, suffering. That's what spurred us on to do better. I remember my mom telling me that when she was growing up, her mother, my grandmother, bless her heart, she was a great grandmother. She's an awesome woman. But my mom told me that when she used to go work with her grandmother, or with her mother, my grandmother, that she worked as a domestic and that she would wash the clothes and the underwear of the person that my grandmother was working for. So you can imagine, she's African American. The lady she worked for was white, and that's not neither here nor there, but you know the situation as a domestic and those who've had parents that are domestics. And she would have to sit, they didn't have dryers at the time, so they had to put the wet clothes, wash them by hand, and put them up on a drying line. A lot of people don't know about that, but those of a certain age, we might not experience, but we know what that's like. You have to pin them up on the drying line and pray that the wind don't blow them off and pray that a storm doesn't come along. And you had to do it right. And my mom said what she hated most was suffering through washing of my grandmother's clients' underwear. She hated it, as you can imagine. Who would like to hand wash somebody else's underwear? And my mother determined at that time, because she watched my grandmother suffer and do her job with the joy of the Lord in her heart, but still suffering, to provide a living for her family. She said that she was determined to get her education and do better. And my mom had a chance to go to St. Louis University back in the day, where there were not many African Americans going to St. Louis University, and she did well. Her father told her that she had to do well because she had a full scholarship to Philander Smith in Little Rock, Arkansas. And her father sent her here and paid for it. And he told her that she couldn't come home anytime she wanted to. She couldn't call her every week. She had to do things in moderation. So she had to suffer being away from her family. But to get what she wanted, she had to sacrifice. She had to struggle. And she achieved her goal. And I'm going to fast forward. There's a wing down at the VA hospital, John Cochran in St. Louis, that's named after her, the Velma Sutton Hemodialysis Unit. The one thing our parents never did, even though I can say we weren't poor, they always emphasized the struggle and the sacrifice and allowed us to experience it at some level. My father, he was a stern, straight man, funny man, did a lot of stuff with us, raced, played basketball, baseball. Very good man to us, very good father to me, my brother, and my sisters. And, I remember a time where he used to make me and my brother cut the grass. And he'd have my sister out there raking leaves too. And if we did not do it to his satisfaction, it would be no problem for him to dump all that stuff out and we had to start again. And of course, we had to experience that. And there are many life lessons like that that my dad told me about the struggle. And then I had a coach named Ron Villers who told me, excuse me, about making a choice in struggle, that sometimes you have to sacrifice the nickel for the dime, even though the nickel is bigger and it seems to be more important, but it doesn't have the value of a dime. I learned that with him. Coach Dennis Green, when I went to Northwestern, told us about the train that would keep running no matter who got on and who got off, but the train must keep running. These are the life lessons of struggle and sacrifice that were part of my life. And I passed it on to my children. My son would always say, the struggle is real. He didn't suffer for anything, but when I had my properties, I would make him and my nephew go out and cut all the properties, give them the lawnmower, point them in the right direction, and let them go, not knowing if they were going to get paid or not, hoping that would spur both of them on to decide that they wanted to go to school and get their education, not so much to make money, but to decide whether to work with their brains or their bodies. The struggle. But sometimes when the parents go through struggle and they made it, what ends up happening is they want to remove that which they worked through pain and suffering from the lives of their children and end up giving them everything that they can possibly imagine. They never let them work for anything. And they get rewards for just doing what is right. Not extra, but what is right. Just simply what is expected of them. You know, and then what happens, these children, especially these male children, they end up growing up with an entitlement attitude. They don't rake leaves. They don't cut grass. They enjoy their video games. We buy them houses and cars and apartments and things and stuff. And we just keep lavishing them with our love and our success. And then we don't understand as they get older, they're going to want bigger and better things. And when we want to stop it, they're going to look at us and say, well, you've always did it before. Why not now? Shouldn't we be preparing our children to the real life of struggle? That there's nothing worth having unless you're working for it, unless you've earned it. Not doing the minimum required, but doing what is required and often looking forward to doing the best. Everybody can be average. Anybody can be mediocre. But it takes a struggle and a sacrifice to be great. And when you learn how to struggle and sacrifice, they can drop you anywhere in the world and you can relate and you will thrive. You just won't survive. You'll be able to handle change that comes into your life at a moment, in an instant. And while everybody else is running around in circle because you have struggled, you can handle change. As a pastor and a born-again believer, the struggle is real. But we don't remove the struggle to opt out for the lavish life. We train up our kids to appreciate the struggle. Not that we tell them about it. My mom and dad told me about it, but they let me experience it at the level that I was at. I didn't get everything I wanted just because I wanted it. There was expectations for me to do the day-to-day things that were required because I lived in the house for free. And my parents didn't live vicariously through me. They let each one of us struggle in our own way. And therefore we thrived in our own way. My brothers and sisters, we are alike in one thing. Our parents prepared us for the day that they would leave. And we would have to carry on the struggle. Each one of us have had a different struggle. But our parents prepared us for the change that struggle would bring. Struggle brings about strength and character and endurance. That's what the Bible says. Struggle teaches us to have patience and to turn to the one God that will comfort us when our faith is weak. And you can apply that to every part of life. Those who are able to adapt to struggle and change are the strong ones, and those will tend to be the ones who succeed. If you listen to and read everybody who you consider a success story, that 10%ers, you'll find out that they have adapted to struggle and learn how to deal with the change of life. And they appreciate the struggle. The struggle made them strong. So I want you to think about this. I want you to think about the struggle. And as we go through this time of testing and the struggle of the whole world, you could either just go along or you could be thriving right now, because there's so many opportunities that have been created by this situation that we're in right now. Every situation that is negative gives an opportunity for positive to grow from it and to prosper. So when you see a change, a chance, a struggle, a sacrifice, there's a chance to prosper. It's not prosper out of prosper, it's prosper out of struggle. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. Those who adapt the fastest, the quickest, end up being those who strive during struggle. So if our kids are, and thank God, mine not, if our kids become entitlement kids, they're going to get broken of it eventually. Unless you're ultra rich and you can protect them all of your life, they're going to be hit with the real struggle. And if they're not ready for the struggle, parents, it's your fault. You babied them, lavished them, think they couldn't do nothing. They got so many different reasons why they can't do, and you fostered that in them. And you actually begin to think that that's the greatness in them. But what you're doing is making them lazy, entitled, leftover. And again, there's nothing wrong with providing good gifts for your children and your friends and your family members. But are you inhibiting them? Are you enabling them? Are you participating in them being mediocre and staying right where they're at? Ask yourself that. Look yourself in the eye and say, am I holding back my children because I want to lavish them with stuff that they didn't earn, and they worship the stuff more than they worship me or care about me? As long as I give them stuff, they're happy with me. The minute I plug up the hole in the sieve, then they're mad at me. So my answer to when they are upset with me and when I try to make them struggle to grow, my answer is to give them what they want, because I don't want to hear it and I don't want to deal with it. I can understand why they don't respect me, because you never introduced struggle to their life. You introduced entitlement, and you can't blame them. If you have an entitled child, you did it to them. They learned it from your lack of understanding of the struggle that you went through that made you strong, that you should have transported to them, or the word I'm looking for is engrafted in them. Engrafted in them. The same struggle that you went through. Not the same time period, not the same way, but some sort of struggle. It could be just telling them no on something and telling them they have to earn it for all the way through. And if your child is entitled, you have to start with baby steps. You can't just all of a sudden one day make them go into struggle mode and think they're going to strive. They're going to rebel against that because you've never taught them that. You got to do stuff like what my parents did when I moved out. They agreed to pay my rent for 6 months. But what I had to do was give my mom half of it until I got used to paying bills. Same thing. Had to give them half. Had to start slowly. And as it built up, then eventually I took over. And that's kind of funny with great parents. I had good parents. The money I gave her, she just set aside. So then once I finished, when I started paying her, she came with the money that I gave her and said, now you keep going. Your parents look forward to you going forward yourself. They don't want you always to stay at home all the rest of your life, saying that the world is hard. Well, the world was hard for them too. But the key was to go out and conquer the world and move forward, to become a vibrant citizen of the world, to strive, to do great things. And realize everybody's not going to do great things, but you should be able to survive. Everybody's not going to be a leader. That's the fallacy they tell you. You can be anything you want to be. There are certain time limits on certain things that if you don't become those things in that certain period of time, it'll never happen. And the same thing with growing up, becoming a man, an adult, and a woman, and a vibrant woman, and all that stuff. You don't have forever to do that. I know 50-year-old children. And they can't understand why they're going through what they're going through because they never sacrificed on the front end. See, as soon as you get into the struggle and the sacrifice, you will come out on the other end prosperous. But if you wait and you always looking for somebody to give you something, hand you something, take care of you, you're going to be sadly disappointed. Because you may not have what that person wants to take care of you. You might have had it when you was 20, but you don't have it when you're 50. So don't avoid the struggle. Don't sit back and think that anybody owes you anything, because they don't. You have to decide at some point that you're going to go out and get it yourself. And I know that's hard for a child that's living entitled, because that's all you know. You have figured out the psychological makeup of your parents, and they don't even realize it. All you have to do is do a certain thing, act a certain way, mope around the house, or tell them how much you love them and hint to them what you want. Or destroy something to get something new. Yeah, I know the game. I'm sorry, entitled kids, I'm busting your game. You'll destroy something that you have, knowing that they will only be upset for a moment and get you something new. Maybe your parents know it, or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't want to challenge you with struggle. But what happens when they leave this earth? Is there enough money in their bank account that they're going to keep you from struggling? Or what could happen is, it could be, but if you have the discipline and the knowledge to balance out a checkbook, you'll just spend money on the stuff that you want and you'll be broke because you didn't understand the struggle. So the struggle is real. The struggle is very real. It's not something that we should take lightly. The struggle is so real. So what do you think? What do you think about the struggle? Do you think it's real? Let me know. I know this was unannounced, but it just made me think about some things. I thank God for my children. They're going on to do great things because they had to struggle. They had to struggle through a divorce. They had to struggle through being relocated and moving around like they did with their mom and her different career opportunities. And I did the best that I could, falling short a whole bunch of times. But that made them strong. And that made them who they are today. I thank God for my struggles, because when my parents needed me the most, I was able to decide to come home and take care of them in their last years of life. Because I got a chance to struggle and thrive. So when they were sick, it was not a scary thing. It was a time to stand up and show them that I had prepared myself for the change and the struggle. When I was 10 years old, my dad told me, one day you might have to change my diaper. One day you might have to wipe my nose. One day you might have to wash me up. And at 10 years old, I just didn't really pay attention to it, but it come to pass that I had to do this. And the reason I was able to do this, they prepared me for the struggle of life. I lived the struggle of life, and I was able to adapt to the change in their lives so I can come back and help them. My brother and sister were also equipped to do so if called upon, but I was the one that was in position at the time to do it. And my brother and sister supported me. There were a lot of people who said they would, but they didn't. And the great thing about it is my son and my daughter supported me too. They had started their life, but they could come back because they struggled to help their grandparents during the time of their waning life. When my dad came home from his hip surgery after my mom had died, after spending 6 months in the hospital and nursing home trying to get rid of the infection, he finally came home and we had to adjust, and my son came to help me. I'm always going to remember the first time we had to give my father a bath, and my son JC and I had to lift my dad and carry him to the bathtub, and he started defecating on himself. And, that was all new to us. And I tell you what, there's nothing like a baby, you appreciate that. But when it's a baby, and when they get to the point where they are full grown adults, it's a whole different story. So I had to develop a system to get him in the tub, wash his sheets, wash his bed, all these things, feed him. And I was blessed to be able to do that because he prepared me. They prepared me for the struggle. Same thing with my mom. So parents, what I'm telling you, don't take the struggle away. Don't insulate and isolate your kids from the struggle that made you strong, because it does build character. It does build character. So again, I didn't let anybody know I was coming on. They could listen to it on YouTube. One listener, bless you. I don't do this for clicks and views. I do this because it's on my heart, and hopefully somebody will understand. The struggle is real. The struggle is good. And sacrifice is the best thing that you can teach your children how to be, so they can not just only survive, but thrive. This is Pastor Jay of Walk Truth Radio Network. This is Let Us Reason Together Live. I promise you in 2021, I will post this as an event so you can make sure you tune in. And then what I will also do is post a number where I can talk to some of you live as we talk about the different subject matters. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. God bless you. Struggle, sacrifice, survive, thrive. Got to do it. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to today's encouraging words. If these words have inspired you, please take the time to support the encouraging word for today with a donation and your prayers. We want to thank you in advance and would like to hear from you. Contact us at sutton968@gmail.com or check us out on Walk in Truth Radio Network YouTube. Thank you for listening and consider subscribing and sharing.